Well, I don't believe that it's a solution. There's not any of us that believe it's a solution. It's a necessity. We've been not slapped upside the head by the feds, but we've been put on.
You could build that and have a lawsuit the day you open it.
Please? We've been put on notice that our current facility is terribly inadequate, and we have been illegal in housing those individuals for a long, long time. So it is a necessity. It's not something that all of us up here are clamoring to do. I don't know that there's a one of us that is clamoring to do this. We have to do it. There's no choice. And it's part of a five-finger approach to fixing the societal problems that we have. And it is a societal problem. And you know, as you mentioned, the third, fourth generation, we cannot go out to those people and say, okay, you're coming with us before they are in the system. We can't fix those people until they do get into our system.
I've been kind of informally tracking the sentencing, and do you realize, I think I went back 2 years, and there was an offender from January to June that actually received probation while he was on probation and was arrested 4 times. Now, I have no idea if that person has kids or not, but probation, number one, obviously doesn't always work, but number two, the larger issue is still you're not, for my money, it's just, you're trying to make everybody feel better. While it is jail, you can have a lawsuit the day you open the new jail, just as impactful as what you have now.
Yeah, but the odds severely decrease.
It goes back to the federal government is gonna come in and say, you're gonna build this, and this is what you're gonna pay, whether you like it or not.
Instead of it being over 30.
Yeah, I think we're ready to go on. You two have just summed everything up, I think, about as well as you could possibly sum it up.
You know, we do jails all over the country. Nobody wants to go to jail, I get that. But the reality is you have to. You have to have a unit in the county that is punitive. Doesn't mean everybody that's in the system.
Certainly doesn't mean it has to be $15 million.
It is what it is. It is what it is.
I mean, you build it and you'll fill it.
The thing that I do know is that this room right here, that intake section, is the portal for everybody in the system. Anybody that gets picked up by the sheriff's department or city police or anybody goes through that Sally board, into that door, gets scanned, and ends up standing in front of the review people, and that's the portal for the system. We've got a county that I did a study for that showed that has 100-bed jail, about the same size as this is. We did it 35 years ago. And their input into the system, their average daily population of 100 beds jail, 780 people in the system. 780, work release, home detention, forensic diversion, all the programs, 780 people. And you can't have an effective program without a jail though. That's the port of entry, sorry, that's just the way the system works. Like it or not, that's how it all works. So, we've been hired to try to do a good jail that's within the budget constraints, and here we are, getting ready to go out with contract documents. If there are any more questions, I can keep going here and show you what the building looks like. And
No, go ahead.
okay. There are expanded floor plans in the building cut up into like 4 pieces. There's expanded plans. I'm not going to go through all of those. The elevations of the building for not very fancy. The office area here, cell block, just a big chunk of no windows in it, there's no openings in it, there's skylights need day around. That's what the building looks like. Pretty straightforward, there's nothing fancy going on here. These things right here are force protection bollards that don't let a car drive into the front door of the building. So, it's a public building, so it does need to be presentable, but it doesn't need to be fancy. That's what we're trying to do. Are there any other questions? Kind of where we are, state of the jail. We will be ready to be on the street, bidding this project very soon. And then there will be always will be other decisions to make, and one of them is this moving work release thing. I understand, I know what you'd like. It's not part of the charge right now. When the county commissioners say, add that in, we'll be happy to, but that's.
Jack, do you have a question?
Yeah, one simple thing, I know the comments come up, the basement, is that not included, it's out? Okay.
Just that much more money.
That would just depend if we had to dig it all out and fill in the space.
Yeah, well, I never heard where that evolved.
Rarely put basements under buildings today because they're expensive. This building would be several $100s a square foot, and even at $100 a square foot for a basement, you got 36,000 square foot building. This is just under an acre. You don't want a basement under this thing. I mean, it'd be, would we do it? Sure. But if you want to add another $3 million to it, I don't think you'll do it. So, and you couldn't put anybody, there'd be storage. You have a gun range there, or you live there. Any other questions? I think you have your copies and stuff. Thanks for your time. Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. And if any of you out there would like to see one of our books, you're certainly welcome to look at them, review them. I'm probably the last person in the county want to build a jail, but I always said that, but I don't think that's necessarily true, because I think there's a lot of people in this room who do not want to build a jail. But you don't have a choice. So here
What
we are.
was the cost to redo the old one?
I can't hear you, what?
What was the cost to refurbish the old one?
To do what?
To refurbish, I think it was like 12.5, but you had no expansion.
Well, we don't want more.
That's, we have no control over that. Look what's happening in Lafayette right now. There was, what, 3 or 4 shootings? That's our neighboring county. That's gonna eventually come this way. That's what scares me the most.
I think it's here. I mean, 2 of the people that were in the Kentland issue had been before the Carroll courts.
I think, really, in looking at all this, that we have done, as a council and commission, a very respectable job of doing due diligence on this. We started out with, do we really need a jail or not? And if we do, can we rehab our one we have? And we did studies on that. And then we decided that we did, and so, well, how do you do that? Well, we started in to select a architect, and we requested resumes from anyone who wanted to put them in, and we went through those and selected down to 2, and then we finally picked Elevatus here as the one architect, and I think that's worked out very well. And the same is true with, and I should say also that we went through the whole situation of checking with other other cities, every town, other towns, other counties. How did you get along with Elevatus? Was it a good experience? Did they do the job? Did they get it done? Very highly recommended. So then we went to what type of a construction are we gonna do? How are we going to do it? We went through the same process again to find a construction manager or what process we were gonna use. We looked at several different ways, decided that the best bet for us was to hire a construction manager, be on site, who would not represent the construction companies, but would represent us. I think the predominant, the majority of us feel like that's the most cost-effective way to do it is to have somebody that represents us rather than the interests of the construction companies. When we were looking at them, at the different ones, we asked, for those that would be interested, and then we began to check resumes, find out where they had worked, how well they had done it. Would you hire them again? And we selected the one that came to us as the highest recommended from everybody. We're not gonna fix every problem in the county with this jail. We don't fix every problem in the county with a new school. We try to do the best we can do. And, I congratulate both the council and the commissioners up here for doing a very thorough job of working this through and finding the most economical way. I mean, I've heard several times, well, why are you going from 30-some to 100? Well, the biggest reason for that is we've had times when we've been up to 70 people that we've had to incarcerate. But also it comes down to, like they say, the 8 categories of prisoners that we have to have. And we are not categorizing them correctly over here. And that's gonna shoot us in the foot real soon if we can't show that we are working towards those categorizations. Now that may mean, in my mind, I think, gee, we may have a cell block with 3 people in it sometime. Yeah, but that's state mandate. We have to have an area for, say, women pre-trial. And I can't quote you what all of 8 are. I'd like for somebody to tell us what the 8 categories are, please.
Male, female, prejudicated, sentenced, mentally ill, and transgender is often one of them. And often minimum and maximum security. It's based on their risk and their what's the right way to say this? Whether their crime is of sexual or violent nature.
Yeah. So by the time we make all those different categorizations, we've got to have all these different costs. I guess I'm a little bit offended that we have to make accommodations for transgender when that was their choice, but that's also where we have the biggest chance for litigation, I think. We might as well face that and fix it right now. Thank you very much for the presentation. We commissioners up here were thinking it's time we'd like to see a synopsis here of where we are, and I'm real happy with where we are. Now, my question to you would be, how far are we from going to bid?
60 days outside?
60 days at the most.
Outside, yeah. 60 days from getting it, yeah.
Okay. Tell us why we would want to go to bid within 60 and not go to 120 or so.
Because it's $83,300 a month.
Okay.
The increased cost. So the sooner we get this out, the better off we are. The sooner we can get it out, the sooner we can lock down a cost. I mean, there's other decisions we can make, about the other components here. But, you know, the big number is the jail, and that's what needs to get done. We need to get that moving as soon as we can.
Okay.
So
we do not want to incur the $80,000 extra cost a month, which may go above that. And we do not want to be the last in line to get construction bids. Is that what you're saying, Don?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There you go. I agree, 100%.
Everybody starts building, they'll just keep pushing us back.
Yeah, we're in a time when the economy is rolling along to the point that there are a lot of communities that are in the same situation we are that have to build more jails. And there's other things being built too. There's hospitals, schools, all kinds of institutional building going on, and these construction companies are going to be bidding on all. So we don't want to be the tail. We want to get in on the front. Is there anything else we need to ask about or run about here before we go ahead? I think, I've appreciated a lot of the questions that have come up here from both the council and people out here in the audience who are interested, because, there's all of a sudden something I say, oh yeah, how does that work? And then we've got a lot of it answered. I'm fortunate, I've never been in one of these, incarcerated in one of these places, so I don't know it, you know, how that they really, operate. Steve here knows a lot about it because he worked in the jail for a long time. My knowledge of it is merely from talking to experts and from going out and visiting surrounding county jails. Some of which I see works pretty good, and some of them you can walk in and you can see, well, there's a flaw or two here, you know, it's just not quite right.
So
had the-
we spent 120,000 so far this year for out-of-county housing, is that right?
Is that right? So-
Yeah, roughly, yes.
And it is easy to look at that, okay. Several years ago, this topic came up, we need to build a new jail. And I was one of them who was dead set against it. Because when I did the calculation, it was much cheaper to house them out of the county in existing facilities than it was for us to build the facility. It just, at that time, financially, didn't seem to make sense to me. Then we got into a time, especially because of the, or I attribute it to the putting back of some of the lower class felonies back into county jails, where all of a sudden, other jails didn't want our prisoners. You know, we had a hard time placing them outside. And right now, that's loosened up a little bit. But that doesn't say it's gonna be that way next year. We may be in a situation where we have 80 people we need to place, and nobody wants to take our people. Then what do we do? There's also a factor that I, being just a layman, just, you know, a guy from Cutler, I didn't quite understand the real ramifications of it, and that is the dangers of hauling some of these people to hearings and to trial and all that, and you're hauling them from some county, 2 or 3 counties away back here and taking them back. The problems of, there are bad people out there. And it's not just that person you're hauling in the car. They may have others out there that are wanting to help them. And that distance and all that, it's a danger to our staff, to our officers. And we should handle our problems in Carroll County. Okay. You guys wanna say anything?
That's it.
So we are down now to jail contract. Ted, do we have our contract?
You have a contract in front of you, and with one proposed addition, which would go under section 12, other terms and conditions. Eric and I have discussed this regarding the bonding, and we've come up with some language we would request Mr. Kraus to incorporate in section 12 as an addition to that.
Now, Ted, when you're saying section 12, that's been, I'm seeing article 12 and.
Article 12, and that little sign is new section, it'd be a section under Article 12, an additional section under Article 12. And Eric has written it out, and we discussed it again before this morning's meeting. And Eric, if you would read that language. It also is written similarly to the paragraph that's in the contract for the construction manager with regard to professional liability insurance. So kind of use some of the language from that, applied it to performance bond, so Eric, if you would like to read that.
Sure will. Here's the proposed language to add as a new section to Article 12 of the agreement, and it goes as follows. A performance bond for the construction manager's services under the agreement may be obtained at owner's expense if available at commercially reasonable cost and terms. And the reason that this was a holdup was just because I believe Ted had looked into it, trying to find how a bond of this nature would be acquired, and I think there may be some difficulty in finding it. So that's consistent with what I would understand also, because what we're looking at here is a construction manager who is not constructing. The other types of delivery services that we talked about, a construction manager might have up to 20% of the total construction. In this case, it will be none of it. And so a typical performance bond is given to somebody who's going to be doing construction. In case they can't do it, they can't complete it, then that bond is used to pay for somebody else to come in and complete that work. Here, it is the performance of the construction manager is as stated in this document. No construction, lots of oversight, lots of work, but not construction work. And so the market is not used to looking for a bond to do that. Is it obtainable? Maybe. And that's why I think it's important that we put it in with the availability of the county to decide not to do it, because it might be too expensive, and that'll be a decision that has to be made by the commissioners. So that's the language. I've got a copy of it for you here. Just by way of review, to the extent it's necessary, on December 19th, the council, after reviewing this AIA document, C-132, 2009 version, said that this council as a body, voting 4-2, 1 absent, would approve this document if there were 3 amendments. And 2 of those amendments are in the latest draft that you folks have received. If you've not looked at it, you can see those amendments at page 5 under paragraph 2.6, point 7, point 2, which is right towards the bottom. And the 2 that were added, first was that there would be any contingency that's left. So any contingency at all, whether that is a contingency by one of the subs or any other contingency, if there's any money left at the end of the project, that reverts to the county. That's number 1. That change has been made in the draft you have. The other thing that the council wanted to have was that if the contingency cannot be agreed on in the first place, because the contingency amounts have to be agreed, and as we discussed at our last meeting, that contingency amount has big ramifications for the county, construction manager, all the contractors, and so that'll be a subject of negotiation as to how much that's going to be. And if the county and construction manager cannot agree on that contingency, then either side can say, we're out of the deal. The contract is voidable. And so the language says voidable, which means either side that says, since the contingency is not agreed, we want the contract voided, then it can be voided at the request of either side in that specific situation. So those have already been made. This last one would be the 3rd that you folks required in your vote on December 19th, which would get that performance bond for the construction manager if that's obtainable. And so the language with those changes would be at least acceptable to me. Yes, sir.
So Eric, understanding that a condition of approving this contract was that 3rd issue, which is attainability of a performance bond. Explain to me, because I'm having a hard time understanding, why is that an addendum or an addition to Article 12 versus just rewriting Article 2.6.5, which specifies the performance bond whichever is more convenient for CCI?
That 2.6.5, and Ted and I did discuss that. 2.6.5 has to do with professional liability insurance.
Okay.
And so he and I agreed that all it's going to do is confuse. Professional liability insurance is obtainable, clearly. The construction manager will be able to get that. That will be a choice as to whether or not the county wants to pay for it. And as with all professional negligence, if there's a mistake made by the construction manager, and you have the insurance and that insurance policy pays off. And, you know, what could that be? You know, your imagination can run as wild as you want it to run, but that's why it's an insurable item, and it's easily obtainable for lawyers, for architects, construction managers. We didn't want to put it in there because it's not the same thing. And so it's a different concept, and that's why Ted and I agree that it should be at the end, so it doesn't confuse anybody about what it really is.
Any other questions about it?
And the way it was left, the meeting on the 19th, that there would be these three language changes, which we now have. The additions will be made, and the council would approve subject to final approval of the language. So my suggestion, Mr. President, would be the appropriate way to continue to move forward would be to have the council vote on the approval of the final contract language, the two that are provisions that are already in, as well as this last bit of language.
So we don't have that, right? That's
It is not in there yet.
So
And
procedurally, would we vote on that today, it not being added to this contract?
You can, as long as this is the language, because we know this is exactly the language, and I'm about to hand it to the auditor, and it'll go, this will be the language that goes into the contract. So I don't have a problem with that procedurally, that's fine.
Would it help if we put that language up on the board so that they can see exactly what it is?
I'd like to make a motion, good, to accept the contract.
All right, I have a motion by Ethan Brown to accept the contract, and that is with seconded by Larry Stock. Is there any discussion on the motion? So I want to reinstate my concern from the last meeting, is that the word guaranteed maximum price is in this, but the county still holds the contract for this. And how, well, and as evidenced by the fact that he cannot, the construction manager cannot get a bond for this because he doesn't hold the contracts. Therefore, he has no ability to guarantee what price is gonna occur. So if an electrical contractor, the county contracts with is the contract's $1 million, it runs over, it's now 1.2 or $2 million. And we have to adhere to the terms of that contract. So the construction manager has got to make us whole on that. And, his objection at our last meeting was that he didn't want to personally guarantee that. And it's the only mechanism for the county to be protected. It's a guarantee, he writes the word guaranteed maximum price, but there is no guarantee. There's no mechanism for us to get paid back. So that's my objection to the contract. Yeah.
I'd like to point out that we are discussing a contract with an individual who has built more jails apparently in the state of Indiana than any other contractor. This individual, Mr. Kraus, has said that he has not had an override in any of his jail contracts. It's time to move on. I think we've done due diligence. Commissioners have, the council has, but it's time to move on. That's why I am in favor of the contract. There's Mickey Mouse around. We say it hasn't cost us anything, but we've gone 3 months on this. And if construction costs are going up $80,000, that's $250,000.
We have to wait until May.
So, again, procedural question. We voted at the December 19th meeting to approve this contract pending these changes. The changes, per your review, are in the contract. Do we need a motion and a vote to approve this?
I think based on the vote in December, yes, because the last statement out of when we got done with it all, was that there would be, the change is subject to final approval of the language by the council. Because it was unclear exactly what the language was going to be. It hadn't been drafted, and as you recall, I basically said to Jack, I'm not gonna draft it because it's your document. It's an AI document, and you put the language in that you think's appropriate so that things meld together, and then the council will have the final approval on it. And I've looked at it, and I think it does what the council had required of Mr. Kraus at our last meeting.
Mr. Lambert?
Yes, once you take this project to bid, and this going by our school at Carroll, when we took our $7.5 million project to bid, once you take it to bid, Josh, and your electrical contractor bids it, he says this is what he's gonna bid, and they come back later and say they're gonna have a change order, it's up to you guys to decide that change order. You can throw that back on the electrical contractor, just like you can throw it back on the architect. If the architect screws up this plan, you throw it back on them. The county has, once they take it to bid and you accept the bids, they gotta go by the bid. If there's a change order, and that's the only thing you gotta worry about is change orders.
Change
Well-
orders, who okays those change orders? Do the commissioner okay those, or do the council okay those? That would be my question, I mean, to the commissioners then. When these change orders start coming through, are you gonna ask why? Are you really gonna look at
I
it?
don't want to go over 14, 15 million, whatever it's gonna be. We won't know what the cost is until we get all the contracts in anyway. And we can also have the contractors be bonded on their bids, but that would rise the price up again. So, yeah, I plan on going out there at least once or twice a week when it starts. They're gonna be so mad at me, it ain't gonna be funny.
So as a council member, I think we've done all we can do. I mean, it's going back in their lap. If it goes to 20 million, we look at those three and say, we tried to get us protection and it didn't work. We did the best we could do, it's on them.
I agree 100%.
And I'll put this out there as well, and I'm sure everyone that heard him. Jack said, there will be change orders. There has yet to be a project in his 50 years of building jails, there has yet to be a project that has not had a change order. However, historically speaking, he builds in a 5% contingency on those change orders. And historically, it's been 1.5%. Through his experience, it's been 1.5% on change orders. Because there will be change orders. I think we all need to realize that. But historically for him, it's 1.5%. I'm okay with that. If we've got a 3.5% cushion of the 5 he built in.
Maybe I should be stepping in here because this is council business right now, but I'm interested in Mr. Lambert back here. When you did the field house over there for Carroll, how many change orders did you have? Did you have very many of them?
3 or 4.
Huh?
3 or 4.
3 or 4, what did you amount to?
100,000 or less on a $7.5 million project. But it's up to you, as, like it was the school board, it's up to us to accept those. If we felt like the architect didn't draw it right, and they gotta add this, we went back on the architect. And that's what we're paying them for. And we had a construction manager, they got 5%. And we went, he worked for us. So we went to him, then he went back on whoever. Carroll did pay for some of those change orders. Architect, I remember, paid for some of them, and even the construction companies paid for some of them.
Thank you.
Depends on whose fault it was at the time.
That's right. But it's up to you guys, if I hear right, it's up to you commissioners to approve those change orders.
Right.
Is there any other discussion? All right. All those in favor of the motion to approve the contract with the amendments as written? Aye? Aye. Opposed, same sign? Aye. Motion carries 5-2.
Okay, Ted, should
Yes,
Do you vote on it now?
because there's been language added to it since you previously approved it. The commissioners would need to entertain and vote on a motion to approve the contract with the changes that have been made.
I'll make a motion to approve the contract with AIA with the documents changes by the council's request. And also in that motion, so we don't have to have another special meeting, have the chairman of the board sign the contract when it's, in black and white.
Contract's actually CC.
Oh, CC, AIA document, yeah. CC, I'm sorry.
Okay, so I have a motion from Steve and a second from Lauren to approve this contract with its changes. And the second part of your motion was that,
You can sign it without having to have a special, it's just one sign.
okay, that I would be able to sign this contract after Mr. Kraus signs it. I call for a vote on that motion. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Motion passed.
You need to stay for the rest of the.
And I appreciate everybody's cooperation, I appreciate the concerns that people have had over this, and I'm ready to move ahead with a contract that I don't want, with a jail building that I don't wanna do. But, thank you, all of you, thank you for your concerns. I think we've come up with an improved contract because of the concerns that were here, and, I think we're ready to go ahead. Now we're down to, salary ordinance, and that's your bailiwick.
Do you guys wanna, end your meeting, or do you wanna stay?
I don't want to stay for a year.
I was gonna say, you if you guys want to adjourn.
I appreciate that very much.
Motion to adjourn the commissioner portions of the joint meeting.
Okay, thank you, that's good, good. I have a motion, a second, to adjourn the commissioner's portion of the meeting, turn it from here on over to the council to do the, financial part of it. All those in favor of that motion, please say aye. Aye. We are adjourned. Thank you.
I did want to say that we've got a gentleman here from Tippecanoe County Work Release that is gonna do a short presentation for everyone after our meeting. I would say, Josh, did you say that, or during our meeting?
We can have
During our meeting. So if anybody wants to hear his short presentation about how it works in Tippecanoe County and how it works.
Learn all I can learn, so.
Okay,
We're gonna
Thanks,
have
Chief.
I'm gonna call for a 5-minute recess.
okay.
And then we'll adjourn.